In a recent interview with Harper's Bazaar, Florence Pugh spoke about her experience freezing her eggs. And she did this for multiple reasons. First off, because she has fertility struggles herself and she's been diagnosed with PCOS, but also because she knows she wants to delay starting a family so she can focus on her busy schedule and the movie roles that are very demanding on her personal life, that she cannot juggle having children with the way that she currently works in Hollywood. And she was very honest about that. She talks about the way that she really gives her body to the projects she's on, in that she does all of these insane stunts and she's willing to cut her hair off to embody a role. But I don't think that she really bargained for giving her fertility, her reproduction, over to Hollywood as well. And it's kind of sad to hear her talk about this stuff, because you hear actresses talk about this all the time. That she's far from an isolated case. Many actresses turn to IVF and freezing their eggs early on in their career, knowing that they won't be able to prioritize that until decades later. Mm-hmm. But this was her comment. Her decade of stratospheric professional success has come at the expense of her personal life. I've worked back to back since I started, and I've missed so much. She lists family events, birthdays, barbecues with friends. I've now come to terms with things that I don't like about myself and want to change. I don't want to have things just happen to me anymore. Part of this reckoning, brought on by themes of mortality in her recent film We Live in Time, was her desire to take control of her romantic life. Following her amicable breakup in 2022 from Zach Braff, she embarked upon a new relationship that ended as the film began shooting. She says it forced her to realize, I can't wait for people anymore. I can't accept this version of love. I have to help myself. She says now she is currently in a new relationship she approaches very differently. I'm more sympathetic to the people who are in love with me. Because it's not easy. This, you say, is a humble brag, not a self-deprecating remark.
It's not just a humble brag. It's a girl boss humble brag.
I'm more sympathetic to the people who are in love with me because it's not easy. I'm tricky. I'm always busy. I can never make dates, but it's not good enough for me to ask someone to just accept that. I'll just end up alone. I don't want that. I want a family. Having been diagnosed with endometriosis and PCOS, she has begun the process of freezing her eggs, which she describes as tiring and horrible, though she recognizes she is lucky to be able to afford the procedure. There was a clickbait article about me doing it. I know you shouldn't read the comments, but I wish there was a little more tenderness and understanding.
There's, just don't read the comments.
Yeah. She also talked about recently deleting her Instagram, which is probably the best move for her. But she first discussed her decision to freeze her eggs late last year on a health-related women's podcast called She MD. And she talked about her diagnosis of endometriosis and PCOS, which can cause infertility.
Can you tell me what PCOS is?
Polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Okay.
So it just means she has she's prone to growing cysts on her ovaries, which can rupture, and it can basically damage your ability to conceive in the future. But her doctor recommended that she freeze her eggs because of these risk factors, but also because of the factors of her career, which prevent her from trying now.
My favorite part of any of these stories, when they come up, and they always come up, is they have to give you the virtue signal. I understand that I'm lucky to be able to do this, but, meaning like not many people can afford it, but
what?
But I am going
What's
to do it.
What's the qualifier?
I just say they always have to point it out, like that they understand.
Oh yeah, well if they don't, then everyone's gonna be like, people can barely afford eggs right now, and you're freezing your eggs. Yeah, you're
pretty
so
much the
out
same
of touch. The reason I'm against it is completely different than her being a wealthy elite. It's really the fact that I think it's unethical to use IVF procedures. and I'm against IVF in and of itself and surrogacy, which is also a common practice in Hollywood now, and it's not attached to any sort of stigma, sadly.
I'm 200% for IVF and freezing your eggs, just not when you're doing it for a Marvel movie. Then you shouldn't be allowed to.
She's doing it so that she can prove her fealty to
do whatever you want with the eggs, just don't do it for the Thunderbolts movie.
She said this was what her doctor recommended she do to prepare. The situation was unexpected and mind-boggling for her. She says, it was just so bizarre because my family are baby-making machines. My mom had babies into her 40s. My grandmother had so many kids as well. I just never assumed that I was going to be any way different and that there was going to be any issue with it. She's talked about wanting to start a family in a previous interview in Vogue back in September. She says she's always been thinking about starting a family. Quote, I've never stopped knowing that I want to have kids. It's just figuring out when. If you are driven and you want to own the world that you're working in and you want to feel like you've made it and you're successful, the conversation of kids and when you're going to do it and if you want it is always in the back of your mind. So I'm very grateful that I got to play a character like that because I am that story. My friends are that story. She's talking about other people who are in her industry who have the same considerations. But it feels like, you know, if it's true, you've emphatically stated this is so important to you, it should probably be in the front of your mind, not the back of your mind.
Perhaps it's there's a little bit of self-induced delusion there to say that it's important to you as it is when clearly the career comes first. It would be better to just be like, look, I want to, but I don't know when that's going to happen, and I think I care about it. I don't really know how I feel about it, because otherwise, you know, eventually you put it off and you put it off and you put it off. I mean, I kind of feel bad for her in a way, because it's like I don't know if it's stumbled upon is the right word, but she's found a great amount of success in a culture that valorizes this world and this lifestyle for her. And she looks at the examples in her family, which are all going completely the opposite way. And she's turned to the only solution that society has told her there is to have.
Which is medical. Yeah.
It's not like, who was it that we were talking about? From The Matrix, who says when she finished making the Matrix movie, she says, I wanted to be a mom and I took time off to be a mom. And that was it was a very different time.
And Eva Mendes has said similar things, that she basically stepped back from her acting career so that Ryan Gosling could focus on his and she could focus on family. And that's the arrangement they chose, but she's gotten significant backlash just for saying so.
Well, he's Knuff.
They're saying that, like, she's a brainwashed trad wife. Like, we're talking about Eva Mendes. We're talking about Ryan Gosling's wife. Mm-hmm. You think that she's a trad wife? Yeah. Like, just because she wants to spend time with her kids?
Yep. I'm saying that the industry that she's in tells her there's only one answer to this, and that's the one that makes the medical industrial complex a whole ton of money.
It's just insane how common surrogacy has been, and it hasn't really been part of the discourse up until very recently. So just what comes to mind right now, I know Paris Hilton did it. Lily Collins did it. Olivia Munn did it.
Yeah. Cord in the chat says, just admit that you don't want kids. I don't think that that's true for her. I think that she would be genuinely conflicted, and she's getting, you know, her brain is telling her one thing, but then every aspect of society is telling her something else. And the solution that she's found is just one that happens to be a tad controversial, and not even necessarily controversial on political lines, given the fact that Trump has looked to, like, expand the ability to get IVF and things like that. It's not even necessarily inherently controversial, but the topic of choosing motherhood over a career is still controversial. I don't think that the medical procedure is as universally controversial as the gendered issue of motherhood and working and all of those things is right now.
Right. Yeah, it's really not about the medical ethics argument. It's the concept that she has trade-offs to make. Mm-hmm. And for her, I mean, all women have considerations like this, but her trade-off that she would have to make is of far greater weight because she has millions upon millions of dollars on the line. Yeah. And she's also not able to have a normative dating life to even get to know someone who could be the father of her children because of her work.
There's the argument here that she's a movie star. She's not a TV actor. Mm-hmm. So she's actually at if I was to like try and Monday morning quarterback like a path forward, if she wanted to do both.
What's the happy medium? Streaming movies?
TV. So she has reached there is a level of success for actors. Like sometimes you'll get lucky and you'll be like a Gillian Anderson who gets hired to do the X-Files and gets pregnant right away and they shoot around it, right? Plenty of actresses have gotten lucky to work on sets where they're allowed to both be pregnant and continue working. She has more of a path forward for that because she's a main draw, right? So if you're like third on the call sheet and you get pregnant, that's not the same thing as being one on the call sheet and getting pregnant. So she's going to have more leeway for them to have to either write the pregnancy into the script or shoot around it and put her in huge puffy trench coats and a stack of cake in front of her to hide her belly. So if she now movies, they're not going to do that. You're not going to get that leeway in movies. But if she wanted to keep working and focus on motherhood, but that again, that's a huge thing to have to navigate and figure out. And especially it's not going to work if you're going to go to some producer who wants to hire you and be like, yeah, but I also want to have kids, so deal with it. But she could not tell anyone and then be like, it's also different too because I'm kind of pitching that on the network TV model where they're filming 9 months out of the year, whereas when they're filming these streaming shows, that window is a lot smaller and there's no guarantee that you're going to keep going.
Right. Yeah. Most of these shows don't even get greenlit for like a second or third season.
Yeah.
But it's not so hard to imagine why a lot of these actresses choose surrogacy because of all of the concerns you just listed. And I still think it's selfish. I still think it's morally reprehensible. It's abhorrent and disturbing for a whole litany of reasons we don't have time to get into right now. But I understand where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
to the extent that I can.
But at the same time, then depending on how far down the argument you get, then people start getting upset at the gendered issue of this. They're like, men never have to make these concessions, and then you have to pragmatically be like, okay, well,
men and women are different.
They're different, so
get over it.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.